Hey guys, Bitesize here. So, where the heck have I been? Well, I've been taking some time to try out some of the new awesome games that have released recently, one of which you might just have heard of. It's a little game called Path of Exile 2. Particularly recently, I've discovered something about Path of Exile 2 and ARPGs in general that I actually really enjoy, which I've always been dead against. So, I'm going to dive into that a little bit. So for some background, I've always enjoyed ARPGs, Diablo and Path of Exile in particular. However, I'm generally just playing them quite casually. So I'll usually, like many of you, I'll make a seasonal character, get it to max level, do some of the endgame stuff like bossing and things like that on a regular trade softcore server, and then I quit until the next season releases and I do it again. However, I've been so engrossed in PoE 2 that I've actually just wanted to keep making multiple characters for a change. Granted, I am eagerly awaiting the first season to release, which I don't think is going to be too far away, by the way, but the game is just so good, it just makes me keep wanting to log back in. It's just so deep and has such satisfying combat and amazing character building. I genuinely do think that when the game fully releases later on this year, it's going to go down as one of the best games of all time. And that's of any game, not just in the genre. But there are some parts of ARPGs that I've never been interested in, namely hardcore and solo self-found. So, first up, why have I never wanted to play hardcore? Well, from my stance, especially as a sort of casual player, the question was, why on earth would I want the risk? Why would I want to potentially put in tens, more likely hundreds of hours into a character that could be completely wasted just from one wrong move or one annoying mechanic? Some mechanic with terrible visibility or a lag spike, even just a game bug. It sounded awful to me and so off-putting, and I've never been able to see any appeal to it. And then with solo self-found, again, the question was just, why would I want to make the game harder for absolutely no benefit? Why would I want to deliberately give myself a harder time and limitations when I could instead just play the game, farm currency, buy amazing gear, and make my build better? The entire time that I've played games like PoE or Diablo, I've had zero interest in both of these aspects of these game modes, and that has continued into PoE 2. So far, my highest level character is a level 90 Infernalist, which is just normal, regular trade softcore, and I've really enjoyed it. However, my friend, who I had to convince by the way to play PoE 2, started the game on hardcore solo self-found. He's got history playing hardcore in things like previous Diablo titles, and he didn't even attempt softcore on his first characters in PoE 2, he just went straight into SSFHC. And to be blunt, I thought this was incredibly stupid. And with the amount of character deaths that he had, particularly in the first couple of weeks of play, I felt vindicated thinking that it was stupid. However, he kept logging back in. He kept making new characters, and he never seemed too dissatisfied with the experience. In fact, he was probably enjoying it more than I was. He ended up playing more hours than I did, even though I was the one who had to convince him to play the game. I'd started playing about 2 weeks before him. And all of this just intrigued me. What was he getting from this? How was he enjoying it so much? What did he see in hardcore and solo self-found? To me it sounded so bad. And yet he was just playing non-stop and really enjoying it. He kept trying to convince me to give it a go, but I stayed stubborn. I kept thinking, no, it's stupid, it's a time waste, I can't do it. But eventually I decided, fine, I'll give in and I'll try it. So I made 2 characters with appropriately mature names just to show how seriously I was going to take this experiment. And in my opinion, it was pretty simple what was going to happen. I was going to get into Act 1, I'd probably die to a bug or some BS mechanic that you could hardly even see. I'd say, ha, I told you so. I'd log out, I'd go back to softcore, and I'd never return. But that hasn't been my experience. In fact, it's really shocked me just how good these game modes are and how much they add to the game, and it's opened my eyes to a new way of playing that I'm quite likely to continue. And I never thought I'd say that. So let me break it down into the 2 individual categories, but honestly, they really complement one another. So first of all, hardcore. So I haven't actually died yet on hardcore. Granted, I'm not very far on either character, but there's a reason that I'm not very far on either character. I'm playing much slower and much more deliberately. The notion that if you die, that's it, your character's gone, is on the one hand really terrifying, but on the other hand, it actually massively enhances the way that you play the game. On my softcore character, I've put a lot of hours into that character, but a huge percentage of these hours, I haven't actually really been playing the game, not consciously anyway. I've been alt-tabbing, I've been staring at my second monitor, I've been watching a show, I've been listening to music, I've been AFK without even bothering to pause the game. I've just been on autopilot sometimes running through maps, just pressing one button, not even thinking about it. Because if I die, it doesn't really matter. Granted, at higher levels, the XP loss is actually quite significant, but for me as a casual, sort of seasonal-based player, I don't really care that much. If I've got a high enough level and enough power to kill the endgame bosses and do the content that I want to do, that's fine. I'm not that bothered about trying to do something like reach level 100. It doesn't interest me that much, so I can kind of just brain AFK while I'm playing the game. In hardcore, you cannot do that, because you know it only takes 1 second of alt-tabbing, or just not looking properly at the game, or not listening to the game audio because you've got some music on, that you can die. And that would be catastrophic rather than just a non-issue. So it actually makes you play the game in a more engaged way. You're more focused, you're more involved, you're more immersed, and that has massively surprised me and been really enjoyable, honestly. Then, with solo self-found, I think that's actually made an even bigger positive impact for me personally. Again, in trade, mainly in the end game in particular, there's just so many items dropping and everything doesn't really feel that impactful. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of blue drops, a lot of yellow drops, quite a few unique drops throughout your journey, but fairly early on softcore, I stopped caring about all of it. If the yellow didn't have the right base that I was looking for, I wouldn't even bother picking it up. I stopped caring about blues pretty much entirely quite early on, because I had enough currency that I could just buy whatever I wanted. I didn't have to disenchant things for materials. I didn't have to sell things for gold because I had quite a lot of it anyway and it didn't really matter. All that I cared about was just kill more mobs, get 10s and then eventually hundreds of exalted orbs and then eventually divine orbs. And then I can just buy whatever items I want and do the content. I just cared about farming currency and getting items from PoE trade. All of the drops and things like that, it was just secondary. Spending the time picking them all up, IDing them, trying to craft on them. Quite a lot of the time it just didn't seem worth it rather than just running through maps with Magic Find, getting more currency. I now compare that with how I'm playing in solo self-found, where almost every item I'm using in some kind of capacity. I'm picking up the blues because I need materials or the gold from the vendors. I'm checking the vendors in every act every time that I level up because sometimes they give me really important upgrades that I need to advance. I'm picking up all the yellows because again, I can get quite a lot of gold for selling them, I can get disenchanting materials from them, or the majority of the time, they're actually contributing to my gear because I'm using them for upgrades, crafting on them and things like that. And then with currency, I'm not just seeing them as things that I need to hoard because I'm trying to build up a set amount to buy something. Take Exalted Orbs for example. I'm actually using them for my characters, I'm crafting with them, I'm engaging with the game systems as the game is intended to be played. It's just so much more immersive and makes the game feel so much deeper. I'm not just coasting and not thinking about what I'm doing, just waiting until I have this X amount of Exalted Orbs to buy what I want. Instead, I'm fully engaged with all of the game systems and all of the game's ways of getting gear and advancing your character. And that is how the game is meant to be played. It's supposed to be engaging. It's supposed to be immersive. You're supposed to interact with all of these things. It feels amazing to actually want to use all of the tools at your disposal rather than ignoring them. And it's no surprise to me whatsoever that the original plan for Path of Exile was that it would be a hardcore solo self-found game only, and they added softcore and trade as kind of afterthoughts just to appeal to a more wider market. I genuinely do now feel like I'm playing the game the way the developers intended us to play the game. If softcore and trade are your preferred playstyle, fair enough. Absolutely go for it and carry on enjoying it. It's been my preferred playstyle for about 10 years plus now, so I completely understand. But take it from me, if you've never tried hardcore and you've never tried solo self-found, just give it a go. Like right now, before Season 1 releases, is a great opportunity while we're still in this period of downtime. Or if you're watching this in the future, just at any time, just make a character on Hardcore Solo Self-Found and give it a genuine fair shot. Don't just make a character, play a couple of levels and leave it at that. Give it a genuine, proper shot and see how you feel about it. Because honestly, as someone who was die-hard softcore trade only, it surprised me so much how much it has increased my enjoyment of the game. And I'd be really interested to know how you guys feel about it too. And if you're interested in seeing the kind of arguments that my friend gave me to convince me to start on this journey in the first place, as well as other general tips and tricks, check out his channel, Hakase. I'll link it in the description below. He's a really nice guy and he's got some great upcoming PoE 2 content. But that's it for me, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
Don't drink the water.